Hey guys, we're live on the moon, and it's about 12:30 uh, on a Monday night, Tuesday morning, and I'm camping out in this one area because I wanted to show you something really special. I'm going to give you a canvas of this whole area, but this is the Alps on the moon. They call it Mount Alps, and I've called it in my inspiration the Spinal Tap Mountains, and at one time even the Coughing Mountains, because I had a coughing fit when I was trying to show them to you one time. I'm going to give you a little geography lesson and a history lesson. This crater here is a famous crater. It's called Archimedes, and you see it has a little kind of an arrow thing pointing there. These two craters, I'm not going to give you the names of them, they're not important. But if you go between Archimedes, and if you're looking at the moon with your telescope, everybody can find the spinal tap, the spinal column. Well, the way I'm looking at the moon now is the way normal telescopes are going to look at this, inverted. In other words, up is down and down is up, and left is left and right is right. So you find the mountains, the Alps, which are the spinal, looks like a spinal column, and the big crater to the immediate left of the Alps is called Archimedes. And you'll see a row of mountains right there, right there, right there, right there. And I got my cursor right there on the spot where Luna 2, see between that mountain range and that mountain range right there on the moon, Luna 2 was the first spacecraft to reach the surface of the moon. It crashed on the surface as planned on September 13th, 1959. Luna 2. But that's not the biggest thrill, okay? If you take a look at Archimedes, you take a look at the spinal column, and these two craters here, if you basically follow these craters up in a straight line to the right of that straight line, right here is where Apollo 15 had their excursion on the moon, right where my arrow is. In other words, if you follow these two point, it's not where they point, it's just to the right of where they, right in there. Apollo 15 was the fourth man landing on the moon and the first long duration, what they called J mission. They spent 3 Earth days on the moon And this was the first time that they used what we call the Lunar Rover. Can you imagine first of all, look at this, the Alps right next to where Apollo 15 landed. And you're a spaceman walking around in this kind of valley area and riding in your rover. I don't know how far they didn't ride that far, but you can imagine the spectacular view that they had looking at the Alps. I know it's jumping around. It's just the atmospherics aren't that good yet. I'm trying to wait. I'm not going to do my survey in a little bit, but I'm waiting until this thing settles down. But I figured I could give you a little geography lesson at the same time. So Apollo 15 landed right there. A 3-day mission on the moon with the first use of the rover, riding all over Kingdom Come in that little area. I don't think they went very far. Luna 2 which I believe I believe it was a Russian job, and it crash landed right there. It was the first spacecraft to reach the surface of the moon, right where my cursor is, right next to the Archimedes. So if you're an astronomer and you went out, well, let's say you're a parent and you have some kids, and you went out to a store and bought them a telescope. Just about any telescope's going to be able to see this spinal tap. And you can tell your kids that right there between Archimedes and the spinal tap is where Apollo 15 had their first mission, 3-day mission on the moon. Okay, I want to give you a continue my geography lesson. This spinal tap goes all the way up to a crater. See how it's jumping in and out? It's the atmospherics. There's the Alps. You can see they're high. They call them the Alps because it's just real high. And this crater right here is called Eratosthenes. I'm not going to dump a bunch of names of craters on you. But if you follow these Alps, and they have different mountains and things, and they call them Mont for mountain Alps. Mont Alps. And if you follow this range of Alps, you can see how they're high there with the sun hitting the tops of the mountains. If you follow it all the way, and this is part of the range, it's a little less high than over here. This crater right here is a really famous crater on the moon. It's called Plato. And this crater, if you do a Google search, and let me try to adjust my contrast down a little bit. If you do a Google search for the Plato crater on the moon, this is another crater where they have a lot of UFO activity. Matter of fact, let me just drop the exposure down just a dab. A lot of UFO activity. They have seen like lasers coming from this crater. So they've seen alien activity on the moon in this crater right next to the Alps and pretty close to where Apollo 15 landed. See, Apollo 15 landed right to the east, right there, next to Archimedes. Oops. Another famous crater on the moon is this one, and that's the last name I'm going to dump on you because you've heard it before. It's the Cassini crater. And again, it's right next to the Alps. And I believe that they've used that name on a spacecraft as well. Okay, well, that's your first. I've done a lot of moon musings, and I've been meaning to start kind of teaching you certain things. That's your first geography lesson. What I'm going to do is pause this thing, and I'm going to try to give this moon another half an hour to settle down and see if I can get a survey in for you tonight. You can see it's jumping around. The wind is blowing a little bit, but most of the problems I'm having, you see how it's going in and out of focus on the moon. It's here. I'm in Texas, and we're getting a cold front in tomorrow, and what we're seeing is the atmospherics from all the changes that are taking place over the skies of Texas. So give me a little bit. I'll catch you up on the back end, guys. Okay, guys, I've given it a little bit. I'm going to pick it up. It's probably the best time to show you Apollo 15, and why is that? Because the shadow is very close to it, so it enunciates the mountains and everything. Again, the key points are Eratosthenes, Archimedes, Cassini, and Plato are the four craters I showed you, and Luna 2 right there, and Apollo 15 right there. Let's start our survey and see what we can see. The moon is getting it's late. I'm going to do a circumference survey, by the way. A circumference survey. Let me raise the exposure up just a dab. And we again are fighting the atmospherics. And it's interesting, the moon will rise late, and when it does, it kind of goes in the it goes up faster, it seems. And I think that the moon is physically closer to us than it was last night. It's interesting, we have all these little cuts. I hope you you guys had a pretty good day. And here you can see some blinkers, just the way the light hits, protruding ridge lines or mountains on the shadow line. I've been camped on this moon for about an hour and a half, waiting for it to settle down. I don't know about you, but I get really excited whenever I start looking at the moon from a perspective of geography. Now look at these. See how it's a higher contrast. Let me drop the exposure down. Isn't that beautiful? Absolutely stunning. I'm going to pause this right now and I'm going to try to focus it just to see if I can. I don't think I'll be able to because you can see the atmospherics are so, it's this cold front coming in. Hang with me. Okay, let's continue. This telescope that I have that's Clavis right there with the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another crater that people think have aliens living in it because they've seen lasers and things. I'm dropping the exposure down. They're warning us here. I live, by the way, outside of Houston. My name is Bill Bryson, and I try to get out every night and do what I call a survey of the moon. Uh, and just to see what I can see and see if anything's changed. Now, some nights the moon is crystal clear and there are no atmospherics and everything is perfect. And then other nights like tonight, it's a little bit, wobbly. It's not the telescope, or it's like the atmosphere between us and space. There are convection currents and all kinds of different winds that causes the image to kind of move in and out of focus. That's why they build the telescopes on top of mountains, because the closer they can get to the stratosphere, the clearer the image. By the way, that crater right there, see that crater? That's the crater that I saw all those UFOs the other day. You know, those things that you think are bats and birds and planes? Wrong. Yesterday I did what I called a horizontal drift survey. when I was a scuba diver. Isn't that beautiful, guys? Look at that. All the color variation. See, it's starting to settle down a little bit. I I decided I needed to start this up because my observatory's on my porch, and when the moon keeps on rising, I run out of moon because it goes into the roof. I used to scuba dive all the time, and in particular, yeah, I've been to Cozumel and mostly Roatan. And there's Plato. That's what they call it, Plato. See how it's moving? That's not the wind. That's that's the atmospherics causing the distortion. Remember that cut that I've always talked about, the cut, and it's a cut right through the Alps, and the Alps go a long way. And let me increase the exposure. That cut line right there. And let's go over here to the there's our Apollo site. See, tomorrow that thing probably will be out of the picture, so I couldn't have shown it to you. Okay, let's do a horizontal drift right, and then we'll go up and we'll go back left. When I was scuba diving in Cozumel, they had what they call a drift dive, and you'd basically go in the water and the boat would drop you off, and then you'd just drift with the current over the reef, and then a little while later you come up, and then the boat would pick you up. Let me raise the exposure up. Look at that. 1, 2 cuts. I wonder what caused that. I mean, if the impact of the meteor, I mean, it's just kind of unusual. Well, on Roatan, my dive buddy, his name was Kees, and he was from Holland, and he was a paraplegic. He was in an accident, and he. Okay, now let's go to the left. Go to the left. But he found that he could scuba dive, and he was an excellent scuba diver. Well, one time when we were staying on Roatan, a place called the Reef House, we chartered a boat and went to Barbaretta, which was an island east. And when we were on the way, we stopped at a place called Pigeon Key, and we did a drift dive. And we, went in the water and then drifted for about a mile, and then got up and blew our whistle, and then the boat would come and pick us up. Well, I remember on that drift dive, and let me change the exposure down a little bit. We ran into a whole bunch of sharks. I mean, it was, and we didn't have no cage. I mean, isn't that pretty? That is beautiful. Let me go back up. Now let's go right. And so we basically, when you run into a shark like that, you just don't want to aggravate it. And we did our best not to aggravate the shark. There were I think 3 or 4 of them, and they just kind of left us alone. But when you run into a shark and you're 80 feet below the surface, uh, and you know that they can kill you, it gives you pause. This right here, by the way, is my famous crystal lake, and I'm very anxious to be able to look at this thing with a Barlow whenever it's close to a shadow line. I think that over in this area there are a lot of structures. I'm pretty excited about finding that Apollo site. I've been meaning to show you things, but uh, that particular site was always not really very clear. But since the shadow line was up next to it, I thought this was the perfect time to talk about it, because you could actually see the valley that the astronauts were in when they walked on the moon, and they rode in the little buggy. Okay, let me finish this thing up by just going down and camping out on our Apollo 15 landing site. Isn't that beautiful, guys? Absolutely stunning. I don't know if I'll be able to do a survey tomorrow night or not. The weather report's talking about extreme wind. Now look at all the color variation here. Isn't that? I know when I turn the exposure up, it takes it away, but and again, there's Plato. Okay, there's Cassini. There's our slice. And if you remember, my Druid training center is going to be right below here. There's Archimedes, Luna 2, the first earthbound spacecraft that crash landed on the moon, right there deliberately. And right there where my cursor is, Apollo 15, 3-day mission on the moon. First time they used a rover. Pretty good session. It's kind of shaky right now. It's not getting too much better. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. Let me turn the exposure up, and I'm going to close this thing out. Hope you've enjoyed it. You guys have a good week. In the meantime, I wish you and yours clear skies, guys.